So today I'm here with Ben Greiner, who is the CEO and founder of TadHealth, which is a new platform that we're going to learn all about today. So before we dive into all of that, do you want to just start off by introducing yourself and telling us a little bit more about who you are?
Yeah, thanks so much, Angelica, for having me on. And a little bit about me. I'm the founder of TadHealth, and really been passionate about the mental health space. I come from an athletic background, and prior to growing up in California, I had an emphasis of doing sports early on, and that really helped me understand the physical side of yourself. And I, ended up, pursuing that to the utmost degree, and have learned a lot, about my own mental health through those ups and downs of sports. But really got into mental health when I was in college, senior year in college. I had an experience with one of my best friends that I'll share a little bit more about. But that was really the first time of exploring what mental health means for someone, what it means for, helping someone else, and really dove into it full speed, and have since been, founded two companies in the process, pursuing a master's in psychology, and, really just driven, motivated to do more to help others figure out their mental health.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thanks for sharing that. And I know we're going to get into that first story that really inspired you to get started working in this space. So the first one was called the TAD Project. So can you explain what that was and how that actually got off the ground?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this will, go into my story a little bit here, but I founded the TAB Project, which is a 501(c)(3) nonprofit, focused on educating friends and family about how to communicate in crisis situations. And this was really, what happened to me my senior year. A little bit kind of taking you into the story. I was understanding that, in contact with my one of my best friends for about 3 to 4 months, and I was understanding that he was going through some things in his life that I didn't really know to the what how they affected him. And we got to a point where I was noticing that something was going on, but I didn't really fully understand. And I got a text out of the blue, with my heart races a moment every single time. But him saying, "I'm done. I don't want to live anymore." And as a friend in that moment, when something is real, and that you need to help. And that was really, the experience of figuring out what to do in that moment. I remember I quickly Googled, and I think it's profound. It sticks in my memory today about, the fourth search was like the Cosmopolitan magazine and WikiHow, which had about 10,000 words. And, I'm in the moment, I'm trying to figure out how to respond. What do you do? I was thousands of miles away. And so I ended up calling the suicide hotline and asking, how do I help my friend? And, they gave me some vague information. I didn't know if I should ask those questions. It was really, an intense moment. And, luckily I was able to call my friend's dad, and he was able to get him to safety. But, that particular moment, and kind of going, beyond, what I really knew to try and help, was the foundation of what we wanted to do, which was educate people about those moments that come up for people, knowing that people can get to those places and really have a toolkit and skills to know what to do. I mean, everyone can help. And so that was, the TAD project was born. And we launched it as a nonprofit. It's still there today, and really focused on this short communication about how to help someone in the moment of crisis.
Yeah, that is such a tricky situation to be in, and unfortunately, something that I think a lot of people find themselves in sometimes, and very little to no knowledge on what to actually do. And like you said, like sometimes those questions that you're supposed to ask are the hard questions. And a lot of people are either not comfortable saying those out loud or don't know kind of what will happen if you do ask the hard questions. So definitely a lot more knowledge and awareness is needed around how to respond in a crisis. So I think it's incredible that you use this kind of unfortunate situation to turn it into something bigger and better and to help others in the process.
Yeah, and there's so much more too to, I guess, I've learned along the way about that in particular, and just letting people know, when you call, the 911 and you ask for, you're telling someone else is in a mental health crisis, you're supposed to ask for someone who's trained in crisis intervention. Not many people know that. So there's these little things that, I had no idea what to ask. I didn't know if it was okay to ask those questions. And then let alone calling emergency services. So I think that's, grown into a passion of mine to figure those things out and really tell the world about these things that should be very well known and, from an early age, I believe. So,
Yeah. So now I guess like expanding into what is now TAD Health, kind of the
yes.
progression of the TAD project. Can you
Yeah.
explain who you are, what you do, and why you believe this whole thing is important?
Yeah. So just to kind of carry on the story here a little bit more, I went out and we learned a lot from the TAD project and education, but we wanted to do more. We wanted to figure out tangible ways to help people in the environment that they exist in. And, this experience happened when I was in school. And I always think about, I remember searching, my school's website after about what resources were at my disposal. And there wasn't much at all. And I think it was my first realization that, a place with so many resources, so much access, you could call it, to all these different types of people and, health clinics on campus, mental health was almost forgotten. So I, really found that interesting and compelling to figure out what would be possible to help improve that environment and that accessibility of resources, on both high school and college campuses. And so TadHealth was born. And originally, when I was looking at, starting a nonprofit, I wanted the best information possible in the world, the best medical information. So I went and I networked with people at the Mayo Clinic, and I was lucky enough to stay in touch with that individual, and he, introduced me to a couple of our key team members on the technology side, and really have experience building solutions, but really focused on the impact that this can have. And so TAD Health is, just to frame what we do, is we're helping schools manage and deliver mental health resources and having a positive effect on both the counseling centers themselves and then those students who are accessing these resources. I mean, we can talk all day on how difficult it is for students to just simply access the resources that are in that environment, and endless forms, searching, phone calls. I mean, on college campuses alone, there's a 68 questionnaire or 68 question assessment that college students have to go through before they can even talk to someone. So for me, I just found that there's got to be a better way. There's got to be a way to reduce the friction and get people these resources in the moment.
Amazing. Yeah. And when you were talking, I was just kind of thinking of, so with my work at jack.org, I'm often like on school board websites, high schools, universities as well. And I was like blown away a couple months ago because there were sections on these websites with mental health services, student wellness. And I was thinking back to when I was in high school or when I was in college, like those were not there. And this is only like a couple year difference, but to know that like students can actually click on this link and there's a list of resources. Again, that doesn't really fix the problem because once you do get to the resources, the wait times to actually get in, there's all these other problems. But the fact that it's actually being highlighted now and it's a resource beside physical health is like such a big jump. And I think just shows that we are moving in the right direction, even though that there are still several things that need to be done.
Totally. And I think, yeah, it's incredibly important that, this national conversation continues to grow. And I see it, a lot. And eventually, mostly schools, have a emphasis on, student success. And we are now for the first time acknowledging that your mental health relates to your student success. And I don't really see it that way. I believe that, mental physical health needs to come first, and then you can look at academics and your own performance. But yeah, I think it's just really interesting to see that finally into play. And yeah, I hope it continues to grow.
Yeah, and you mentioned so you have a big focus on both education and technology. So can you talk about how that's actually reflected in your mission and how you're, I guess, framing your website to reflect those things?
Yeah, we really are focused on this accessibility piece. And like you said, there's a lot of, resources that are generally listed on these websites, but they're often, dead links. They don't really communicate to the right person who's going and searching for those resources. So, we have conversations all the time about what could we do to improve and reduce the steps to someone getting that comprehensive understanding or view of what's available and what could they get in a moment versus what might they need to wait a few days for, or what could they get in between an appointment. There's all these elements in that environment of a school that really can be enhanced through technology. So I think that's really been our focus is, a single mental health appointment in the K through 12 setting is an average of 41 tasks that counselor for just one appointment. So if you can imagine, the ratio is 612 to 1 students to counselor. So it's one counselor, each appointment is 41 tasks. Now you're adding in the amount that COVID has spiked this need for mental health resources, and that it's not a recipe for success and continuing to help individuals that are in need. So I think that's where we're finding the opportunity is to help with those efficiencies and really just grow from that student's perspective. This is what's available. You can set those expectations and really help people, understand what their school can do to help their mental health.
Yeah, for sure. And so like it sounds kind of like a database of resources, but am I correct in saying that?
Yeah, that's definitely one piece of it. We're very focused on, the access to crisis resources. We have a Get Help Now button that's really been instrumental in that process to deliver the right resources at the right time, and really more technology behind that. And then, the access to these appointments, facilitating them in an environment that's, safe. I think we can use the example of one of the schools we work with is Beverly Hills Unified. And, the way that a student can, instead of walking into the wellness center for the first time, log in with their school credentials and book an appointment through their school and really already connected to the wellness center. It eliminates that frustration for that student. And I think it's often overlooked, but that's a really powerful piece to start that process for someone and, reduce the barriers and kind of I got to physically get up and leave class, and there's a lot of stigma around that. So I think we're seeing the opportunity to help improve that.
Yeah, and that's why I asked that because like you have all these resources, but then you're also leveraging the technology piece to actually connect students with these resources directly, which I think is really unique because, like you said, a lot of other websites you go on, you click, you have to fill out all this stuff. And it's such a daunting process, but to actually be connected directly and then have all these other resources like education, awareness along with that, I think could be really, really impactful.
Yeah, absolutely. And, we love understanding the student's perspective. I think, it's so important to keep pace. There's all these, applications out there, and, it's important to understand what else is out there when it comes to mental health. We often think about that care journey, and that's incredible to enhance that, but there's so much more to mental health that we really want to learn about and expand. And, a lot of it relates to events and content, and, things like this podcast are super helpful for someone to relate to. And we just know that that's part of helping with mental health, and just checking in on, some another type of content that's not necessarily, something that is normal, and on these other platforms like TikTok and Instagram.
Gotta put your stuff everywhere in order to get it to the right audience.
I know.
Um, but you did just bring up another point, I guess, that raised a question is like, what are you actually doing to get that student's perspective? How are you bringing them into the conversation?
Yeah, the way we built the platform was first thinking about the students, and one of the things that we've done is built sort of like a level of access for those mental health leaders in the school settings. There's a lot of students speaking out about mental health and wanting to grow the conversation in their school. And so we have, this peer counselor idea and program that's really growing, and we're expanding upon, but giving them, the tools to create and share within that environment really speaks well to the rest of the students. I think it's one thing to, say that you have these services available, but it's really about engaging the voice of those individual students. What are they dealing with? What's going on in the school? What's the schedule like? What are events are happening, so people can connect to them and relate, throughout the year.
Yeah, that's really cool because you mentioned at the beginning, like you're talking to experts from the Mayo Clinic and other experts in the field,
Yeah,
like to put in that good knowledge, but then you also kind of have to bring it back down to the base level and who is this actually impacting? What do they want? How can we actually like ensure that our services are best suited for them? So it's awesome to see that you're kind of considering both sides of that spectrum.
absolutely. Yeah, it's kind of where things all began was, I needed something to support my friend, and he himself could have benefited from resources and accessibility in that moment. So it all comes down to, that individual, but also the people around them. And I guess that's my goal, is to figure out, how do we continually support ourselves and the people around us, as we are going through so much more than we did in the past, just with, social media, the day-to-day things that we're aware of. We don't even realize it. So there's got to be support systems in place.
Absolutely. I love that point just because like so many people do find themselves in this situation and it's not something that's been taught to us growing up. And you always relate it back to physical health. Like, if somebody starts suffering from something physical, you normally know what to do, what actions to take. But for mental health, there's always that little stutter and nobody really knows what the right course of action is. So services like this are definitely needed. And this is my favorite question. I really want to hear your answer. But thinking big, what is your dream goal for this organization? What do you hope to achieve? Who do you want to reach? And things like that.
Great question. We're always evolving. I think, if I were to look at it, personally, really want to see impact in someone's day-to-day life. Like, where does mental health fit in to my day-to-day? and how can I better understand myself. I think at the end of the day, you look at mental health, like you said, you can't see what's going on in your brain, but we want to help people better understand themselves through that, through the tools, through the resources that they have. And I think that's really been something you know, want to see come to life through the platform. Yes, we want to have, the schools working in sync for all these other functions that are helping people. But at the end of the day, that individual, like, are they able to learn more about themselves, learn how to manage their own mental health, and really handle these stresses that come up? Because the rate that we're going, we need to have these capabilities and understanding for ourselves so that we can move through things that inevitably come up in life.
I love that. And so right now you're based in the States. Are
Yep.
you, I know you also have Matt in Canada. Are you like hoping
Yeah,
to make it more of a global thing? What's your goal with that?
absolutely. And we are, kind of launching, we are launching into Canada. We're working with a private high school there, and really seeing the emphasis of mental health in Canada is a lot more forward thinking than the United States. And, we hope to extend that beyond North America, knowing that a lot of these other countries, you know, don't have the same infrastructure, but, there are examples of them doing things incredibly well with less. So I think, we really want to globally expand eventually, and we know that there can be, language translation for everything that we're doing, and also just, giving people these tools. I think they're universal. We don't, they're not bound by state or country. We all have mental health. It's just figuring out, how people communicate and what's most helpful in their country, their environment. Yeah,
Yeah. And that just always raises other, I guess, issues with like cultural differences, things that different people go through, even just like the slight difference between Canada and the States, like as close as we are
yeah,
geographically and as much as like our lifestyles are the same, there's still different unique things that affect us based on what side of the border we're on. And that's just like
yeah.
a fact that you can't really get away from, but kind of bringing it back to that idea that everybody does have mental health and it is an important conversation, something that we all need to know and learn about.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's ever growing. It's just I hope it continues into less about things and more about developing yourself and understanding that side of you. I think there's a lot of flashy things, but we want to actually have people develop and grow, and that's one of the reasons why we're trying to work with high schools, just so that people can learn these ideas early on, and then form their own ways through their development.
That is the ultimate goal. We can only hope we get there.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, I guess just wrapping this up, can you tell everybody how we can get connected with you, learn more about TadHealth, any of your socials, websites?
Absolutely. Yeah, we've really just officially launched this past September, but any school that is interested, or if you're just interested in learning more, you can head over to tadhealth.com. And, we have a social media. You can follow us on LinkedIn, but everything is, our handle is TadHealth. And, we're very excited about the future. And, feel free to reach out to me personally. And yeah, I'm sure we can put some things in the show notes. But yeah, that's us. And thank you so much for having me on. I love what you're doing, and it's so important to grow the voice of mental health exactly like you're doing. And yeah, we really want to enhance that and make that known for everyone. So
Amazing. Yeah, we'll definitely put the links in all your social media highlights in the episode notes. But yeah, this has been amazing. We got connected in a very unique way, I think, but glad we got here. And yeah, just
Yeah.
thank you so much for everything you're doing for mental health in your community, and hopefully can expand broader. But these are just really important conversations and resources, platforms to have. So thank you so much for everything you're doing. And I'm excited to see what your team achieves.
Thank you so much, Angelica. Appreciate you.